class, but no, I don't need to introduce the Reimers. Thank you for coming. But they would like to have questions after they're finished. And when you have a question, if you'll let us know, we'll bring the microphone to you. Otherwise, it won't go through the Zoom to the Zoom audience. So that's why we run around with a microphone. So if you have a question at the end, let us know and we'll bring it to you. Okay, thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I will not be offended at all if somebody wants to leave to go home and watch the Gator basketball game. So it may just end then. So, or I have it being recorded at the moment, so I can catch up. Although my father never liked pre-recorded sports events. He felt that then his rooting for whatever was going on didn't matter. That it already happened. He felt that if he was shouting at the television, it made a difference as to what was going on.
Yeah.
Sandy is truly the dream expert in our family system. But when they called and asked if we would do this seminar, she is in the midst of doing contemplative prayer all through Lent, and she had a sermon coming up the Sunday after Easter. And so she said, if we want to do this seminar, it's up to you to get it going. So we are sharing what we're doing, but I am beginning rather than she is, not because I'm a priority dream person. Okay, I made that clear. Dreams are, we're going to speak a little bit about it, and then afterwards we'll have an opportunity for any questions you have, but we're not in a situation or a setting where we're going to do the sharing of dreams this morning. That requires small groups and more time than we have in the moment. So dreams are remarkable. I mean, think of the fact that we are asleep, and when we're asleep, our conscious world shuts down. We have no idea of what's going on in the world around us. Yet at the same time, our unconscious creates these stories and visions that unlock magic and mysteries in our souls. I had a dream Friday night, just as we were preparing this, and I dreamt I was in a bus packed full of people who were going to some event together, probably looked like some church group. And there was going to be an exam coming up for me where I had like school, 4 exams coming up, and I prepared for 3 of them, but the 4th I had not. And there was a folder of material about this 4th exam that I, again, had paid no attention to. And I thought I could just wing it. I can get through this. I can manage this without having to study for it or prepare for it. And it was the subject, the course was Ausfahrer. I thought, I can figure that out. I'll know what's going on. And I kept going and going and getting more and more anxious about this exam on Ausfahrer. This is a variation of the exam, the dream that so many of us have had about having forgotten an exam that was coming up in college, or we hadn't prepared for, or didn't know where it was, or hadn't written the paper. And I've always wondered about those things, because I have them constantly like anybody else. And I did in this dream finally say, I'm going to get that folder and study for this exam. I really think it was about preparing for this seminar. Because part of me thought, oh, I know an awful lot about dreams. I'll just, we'll have a rough outline. And I realized I needed to go back. We have folders and folders full of notes, none of which were printed in a font large enough for me to stand up. So this is now 14 font, double spaced, and prepared as we go forward. We at the United Church invited Jeremy Taylor, a gifted interpreter of dreams, to join us at least 4 times, as well as offering Sunday morning sermons. Here we had workshops, and on the Sunday morning sermons, he actually took one of Sandy's dreams and processed it in front of the whole congregation for the Sunday morning service, and the same for me. And these were remarkable events. He left us in this church with a legacy of tools for interpreting dreams. Because of his work, Sandy and I have been part of a group that shares dreams regularly for over 20 years here at UCG. We're going to share some of Jeremy Taylor's insights and guidelines, and then we'll open it up for your questions. Dreams are products of the unconscious. They are outside our control, outside our own willpower. They are messages from our deepest self, personally, spiritually, and even with archetypes, general universal symbols. And one way of saying this is that the unconscious is not yet speech ripe. The unconscious is vivid, gripping, it presses on our awareness, but it does not have words yet. So the message is sent to us in symbols and images in our dreams. Our dreams pick the roadblocks in our everyday life, even roadblocks of our spiritual awareness, and our dreams send us images and stories that relate to that roadblock. And once we acknowledge that roadblock, then our dreams skip ahead to the next place that needs our repair work.
All dreams come in the service of our health and our wholeness. And we're going to keep repeating that over and over again because it can't be said too many times. What we remember in our dreams is important because it always contains valuable information. All dreams bring us energy and insight into our emotions. And dreams never tell us what to do. They simply deliver the message that there is something here we need to look at or be aware of. There is no such thing as a bad dream. Nightmares are simply dreams that have information of such particular importance and value that the dream has to present that information to us in a way that will get our attention. Nightmares get in our face, and they bring our awareness to emotions that we have repressed or neglected in our waking life. And those dreams can invent scenarios where we can release our emotions. No dream ever comes to make fun of us or to torture us. If a dream brings up an issue, the subconscious is telling us that we have in our life now the resources, particularly the readiness to deal with that issue. Nightmares are often repetitive. They will keep coming and coming, and we keep waking up and waking up over again until we are able to get the message. How many of you have had recurrent nightmares? Yeah, so it's pretty common. And I'm going to briefly tell you about my recurring nightmare. It started when I was in my 20s, and lo and behold, it went on into my early 40s. And it wouldn't come all the time, but it came again and again, and I never could figure it out. It was just very scary. In the dream, I'm about teenager, and I wake up, and there's somebody trying to get into our house, and it vividly was the house I was living in. So I get up and I run to the nearest window and try to shut it, and I get it shut, and whatever's out there has already moved on to the next window, and I run and shut that, and then I run and shut the next one, and then I run and try to lock the door, but whatever's out there keeps getting ahead of me, and it's so scary, and I wake up all the time. Somehow, when I was about 42 and I had this nightmare, I got really angry. And I did my whole thing of shutting, and I got to the front door, and whatever was out there had bright headlights and a car shining into all the windows by that door, and it was so infuriating. It was just awful. And I pulled open in my dream the front door, and I literally flew and turned into a banshee like this. And went right up to the window of that car, and sitting behind the steering wheel was my mother. No. Wow. Wow. So I finally figured out what that dream was about as a teenager, with my mother, who was often shutting windows and keeping me in a certain kind of emotional place. So that was my nightmare. Recurring dreams can draw attention to the part of our life that has remained unchanged in the midst of lots of other changes, or simply recurring dreams can draw attention to something that needs to be dealt with. And I needed to own that about that part of my teenage years. We're trying not to take your paper.
I'll just use yours. Seriously, this is
Okay.
yeah. So dreams can do anything they want. They do not have to conform to the logic or laws of physics. Therefore, a way a dream comes to us is the best possible way our subconscious can communicate a multi-layered message to us. If a dream could do it a better way, it would. The more complex or bizarre a dream seems, the more layers of meaning it communicates. And the most important thing is that only the dreamer can say with any certainty what the meaning of their dream is and what it may have. And that meaning usually comes in the form of an aha. It is like a pop or a tingle, a felt shift of recognition. I can describe it as though my conscious mind suddenly remembers what the unconscious already knew. It is the only reliable touchstone of dream work. If anyone comes along and claims to be an expert of dreams and tells you exactly what your dreams mean to you and that they know what your dream means to you, run as fast as you can in the other direction, because only you can judge your own dreams. Others people's suggestions may be helpful and interesting and may be worth considering, but the test is always what seems right to you. There are lots of schools of thought about dream interpretation and symbols. They can be helpful and essentially correct. What they can give you are suggestions about what your dream might mean. But you have to make the final decision on what makes sense for you. And our advice is to never use just one book or one method to interpret dreams. Have a couple. If you're interested in dreams, get a couple of different dream books. You get lots of suggestions for interpretations, and then you choose the ones that clicked for you. That said, there are some dream symbols that seem to be universal, archetypes that often click. A few. A house is a great archetypal symbol of dreams, and many people will dream about houses. And in dreams, it's often the case, this is just a suggestion, it means different things for everyone else, but often in a house, we might dream of finding a room that we didn't know was there. And maybe even in that room might be someone who might have been the architect of the house or someone who lived there before and has a suggestion about meanings for the sense of our lives. In a house, if we dream about something going on in a basement, those of us who lived in parts of the country that had basements, that's often something about the unconscious or the subconscious. As we move up, it might have a more open meaning. A top floor might have a heavenly kind of meaning. Something in the backyard may be a family or a community thing. In the front yard might be something open for everyone. And those kind of clues about archetypes like that, meaning like that, have helpful suggestions. They're not determinate. They don't force a meaning, but they give us some clues. Sandy's good with a lot of those. Did you want to talk about any others?
I will with my other dream.
It's your turn. Okay.
Good. Thank you. So we said that there's no such thing as a dream with only one meaning. All dreams and dream images have multiple meanings and multiple layers of significance. And sometimes dreams will come with puns that suggest these multiple truths. So, and I'll add to this in saying that if you're dreaming and you're in the front yard of your house, you're in a very public place where people can be seen, where you can be seen. It's your public life, and the backyard is more private. So that's interesting to note if that comes up in a dream. So in this dream, I'm in my front yard of my house, and this woman comes to me, and she's Native American, and she introduces herself as Omawe. And so Omawe comes with a message to me, and I'm trying to get the message, but it's not clear. It's just not clear, but I'm being very polite. And I'm listening, and I'm appreciating her being there. And then she leaves, and then I wake up. Well, a couple days later, I'm thinking about this, and I realize that her name, if I pronounced it slowly, was On My Way. On the way. And to me then, the message of the dream was, I was 42, my kids were growing up and leaving home, and I was looking at a different time in my life, and I was looking particularly at what I wanted to do about ministry. And so the message was, you're on your way. It was a great dream. That was what I took from it. The technical term for a dream that has a lot of multiple meanings is that a dream is overdetermined. And almost all dreams have some element of being overdetermined. So it's impossible to say when and if we have fully unpacked a dream. I mean, I might go back to that dream now and see things in it I didn't see at the time. But for this reason, dream work is always a little bit incomplete. If you're working on a dream or visiting a dream and it seems to have 2 or 3 messages that are in conflict with each other, it may be, this is a suggestion, it may be an indication that your life is in a radically new phase, where your previous questions and values and what you've previously been doing are being reshaped. And the other thing is, no dreams come to tell us what we already know. So if it feels like that, there's something in there that we haven't really visited yet, nor do they come to say, nah, 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 nah. They're not doing that either. Certainly there are references in dreams to what we consciously know and understand, but this is always in the context of moving us further along in our growth and development. Sometimes the hardest thing for anyone who's working with a dream to do is to see our own dreams with fresh eyes. And the easiest thing is for someone else to bring fresh eyes to our dreams. So if we're really interested in our dreams, the very best thing we can do is to find someone we can share them with. Someone who will let you hear their dreams, and someone who will listen to your dreams. And when we share dreams with someone, here's the very best technique that I want you, if you leave with nothing else, this is important to take home. The person telling the dream tells it to the other person in the present tense and using the first person I. It's all about I. The person listening to the dream speaks in the first person, and the first thing that person says is, if this were my dream, I would think about, okay? And that keeps the listener from trying to tell you what your dream means to you. The person listening says, if this were my dream, it would remind me about that. If this were my dream, this is what I'd be thinking in my life. And it opens up a conversation, but it puts the dreamer not in the position of being told what to think, but being opened up to some possibilities. And I promise you that that works beautifully every time, even if the person responding says, I would think about World War II, and that doesn't make any sense to you. That's still okay. You get another kind of picture about it. So I think this is now our time for any questions or clarifications, or did I interrupt something?
And we have a microphone, and when you get the microphone, speak into the top of it, even if you think you speak loudly, because number one, most of us can't hear well. And that also takes it out to the TV audience. So share us, tell us your name and your question.
Hi, my name's Suzanne Byrne, and I had a dream that was, for the most part, purely a sensation. And it was this feeling of someone was either running, and I could feel my bed vibrating. There were, it's like pounding steps, and my bed was getting rocked, and that's all it was. So, you know, there was no beginning, end, there was no plot. That was it. And I don't know that, I mean, I would love to have images. I would love images that would be, you know, they're symbolic and all that, but this was just a sensation. So I'm wondering what Jeremy Taylor or you all would have to say about that kind of a dream.
How did it feel to you?
A little threatening.
Did it feel like you were running, or the
Oh, no, someone was running
someone was
by me. Yes, those are good questions. That's a good question, because I do kind of have a hint about what it relates to, but I guess maybe I'm afraid of knowing. Maybe I'm afraid of knowing.
spirit, probably insightful?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it would be good to write about that
yeah. I mean,
and see what comes out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think if it were my dream, I would want to know, am I running? Is someone running? Am I experiencing someone running around me,
It's being caused outside of me.
outside of me?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I'll write about it. Thank you.
It's always good to be able to ask for another dream or ask for
Yeah.
more about that, to be able to say, I'd like more, I'd like another dream like that. I'd like to know more about it.
Okay.
Just say that to yourself as you're going to
I
sleep.
might say that myself.
Okay. Thank you.
Myself, yeah. Yeah.
My name is Stephanie. I had a few years ago, I had this dream that I was dying. And I can tell you almost by the color of the car I was sitting in what this dream was all about. And this is the first time and last time that I remember a dream consistently. I still know the feeling. It was almost a relief. It's like, I know the street where I was driving down. I think that is a little unclear. I think I was on the rider's side, not the driver. I know it's in my hometown. I know exactly the curve that we didn't make, and we were flying into a house. And then I was dead, basically. And I thought, oh, this is not bad, actually. This is, it was such a relief to know that, oh, dying is not bad. It was a revelation, and that stayed with me. And but I think my question is, it's not that I haven't dreamt and that I haven't the next day realized I had a dream and that was either good or bad or something, something was happening or a lot of things were happening in that dream, but I've never remembered anything. After the first second I was waking up. And at that point, I'm still too tired to sit down and write it up. But this dream is so, still to this day, so vivid. It's I don't know why this is and why I can't remember any other dreams.
I would write it down. I mean, I would write it. Yes. But even more than that, it's still, I would write it just to have it in front of me and to look at it. To me, it's wonderful. If it were my dream, I would be delighted to recognize that a dream of dying is a release at some point, and that it's giving me a sense of something more, and that it's not scary, and that whatever it is I'm dying to, the old part of me perhaps in my life, and being born to a new part of me, ready for a new part of me.
Yeah. I mean, it was at a time, and it's like, was pretty obvious why I was dreaming this, because I was undergoing a big professional change, and it wasn't by any means nice at the time, but so I was dreaming about it, I guess, and so it's like, oh, this is actually, it's actually not bad. It's actually not bad. And it in the end, I mean, it has nothing to do with how I reacted to the dream or what was in the dream, but in the end, everything turned out to be better, as it so often has for me. But it's just, yeah, maybe I should write it down, and maybe there is something more hidden behind it.
If it were my dream and I wrote it down, what I would find often is that in the writing, things come to me in a way that maybe hadn't come to me just in thinking about it. So there, I think sometimes is, for me, a real value in the writing.
Thinking in, and what I actually wanted to ask is how can I make the question is, how can I make myself remember, meaning waking up, writing down a dream that could have potential meaning and help for what I'm going through?
My response to that is that probably varies from person to person. For me, I don't get right up and run in and write because it's either cold or I'm hot or I want to get a shower. I need a cup of coffee. So for me, the writing comes a little bit later.
And we often talk about our dreams.
Yeah.
So, and often the first thing we'll ask each other, do you have any dreams?
And he always has a dream.
I have a lot of dreams.
He has a lot of dreams.
So, but it is a little bit of a habit, and sometimes it may be keeping a little pad next to my bed and just being able to jot down something that will keep track of it. And then I'll go back, and I have a notebook this thick of dreams that I've typed up, and because I can't read anything I write, and so and just have that, got into a habit of that, like any other habit I would have. And then there is a way of sometimes before I go to bed just saying, I'd like a dream. I haven't had one for a while. I'd like a dream about something, and the suggestion may work as well.
Someone hypnotized you.
Pam.
I'm Pam Smith. In the late 70s, I was on my way with my best friend who I was in South Dakota, and we were going to a Native American gathering. Mm-hmm. And I, at that time, was very taken with the leaders that I knew of, John Trudell, Leonard Peltier, and we were laying by a stream, sleeping in our outdoors in our, we're whatever we were, early 30s. And I had a dream in which I was in a cafeteria line, and there was a Native American woman in front of me with a long skirt. And she pulled out of her skirt pancakes that she could just feed everybody in the world with. She just pulled them out of her skirt and tossed them around, and it was magical. And I woke up in the middle of the night, scribbled this down in my notebook with, all slanted and hard to read the next morning. But when we got to the powwow, only men can dance in the Sundance. And I sat with Candace and I sat with Native American women on the ground, and they were so giving and had a lot of poverty, but still gave whatever they had. And my dream came back to me with thinking about, oh, it's not exactly the heroes that are up there dancing. And it's these type of people that are my guides. These are the people, the ones who are just doing the simple little things for the person next to them.
That's wonderful, Pam. Thank you. And that's one of the things, again, Jeremy Taylor points out, is that the laws of physics don't matter in dreams. Water goes uphill and, the mountains fly. And so you got pancakes flying around the world here. So that's a great gift. We got right here.
Brent Siegel, I just wonder if you think it's possible to find your dream, in other words, intentionally set the stage for a dream that you'd like to turn over to your subconscious when you go to sleep.
Sure.
You do.
Give it a shot.
Beware.
I mean, I think in another sense, our daily events do prime us for our dream. So the material, a lot of times, is already there, and we don't even consciously lay it out. It's there. But I think it's very possible to ask for a dream about a certain thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, let us know.
No, I think I've said that. I'd like a dream about that.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work.
No.
And maybe the dream isn't the one I thought I was going to get. But I think it's to be open to whatever mysterious thing may come along. We have, these lifetime of academic dreams that terrorize all of our generation. And as a minister, I have just had loads of dreams of being up in front with no sermon, no pants, and these just have, and they're all to come in wholeness and healing and help me with something. And I keep wanting to get something beyond that, and try different things. Even one time, I'm a person who's very much tied to my manuscript when I preach. I want it in front of me. I can look up, but I like to know everything is prepared. I know where my beginning, middle, and ending are. And one time I think I was preaching about this and did it without a manuscript, just to see if I could get through, and that could free me from the dream of having forgotten my sermon back in the office. It was obviously much more than that going on in my life for that. So, but it is worth asking.
I'm Ann Taylor, and I want to make a couple comments about Stephanie's discussion. One is that one way to remember dreams is to give it a title. Powerful title, then you'll remember it later and all is good. The other thing I wanted to say is that a dream can be a gift to someone other than the dreamer. So thank you.
Thank you. It could be a gift to someone other than the dreamer. So I get a gift from Stephanie's dream.
Some people here. Yeah.
There's one back there. Oh, Glenn, did you have it? Yeah.
You've been trying.
Glenn Mans. I'm just curious as to the possible connection between hypnosis and dreams and interpretation of dreams. If there's been a lot of, if y'all are aware of the studies and whatever between those two worlds. Is there a connection, or what is the connection between hypnosis and dreams and the recalling of dreams?
I don't know.
I could always make something up. And it's very tempting. But are there any of the counselors or anybody who has any Any experience or background on hypnosis and its connection with dreams, being hypnotized for dreams?
Well, one thing
Let's we've got a mic back here. Do we have another 2 mics? Okay, we're gonna get 1 mic back to Pam and Glenn, you have a question, right? You're not talking about hypnosis.
Well, just one thing that I don't even know if this is true, but it seems to me that dreams come from the unconscious and hypnosis goes to the subconscious. And I think the unconscious is deeper than the subconscious.
Sounds good.
I wanted
Eric is next, I think, with a question over there. Or does somebody have another? Yeah, Eric? Well, oh, did you have some? Okay. Okay.
Eric Smith. Two comments. One, I feel like when I notice, I'm assuming I'm dreaming every night. I believe that. When I remember my dreams, it's because of it feels like I took an ibuprofen or the night before, the evening before, or I was really hungry when I went to bed, or there's like, it always seems like there's some outside environmental factor that causes me to really have a very distinctive dream, or like, I'll just remember like, wow, I had some really strange dreams last night. Like what happened the evening before? So that's just one thing I noticed. But again, I'm assuming I'm dreaming all the time, but it's just, so these kind of outside environmental things. The other thing, a very distinctive dream, remembered it when Stephanie told about her dream. I had this very clear, visceral dream about being in like a confrontation with someone, and they pulled out a gun and they shot me, and like right in the heart. And I remember falling to the ground, and it was just like this very visceral, like, I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of graphic here, like felt like my blood was just going out of my body. I knew I was dying. There was just no question. But what I got out of that dream was that I somehow I believe that I was connected to somebody in some other dimension that actually happened to. There was like some Eric Smith in some other dimension that happened to them, and somehow I connected with them. But it didn't happen to me. I woke up, obviously I was fine. But yeah, I was like, oh, but it was just so visceral. I think like I've never had anything like that happen to me personally. I've never had heart surgery or anything like that. So that was my kind of analytical explanation for that like I was literally kind of psychically connected with someone else. And I just wondered what you thought about that.
Well, I remember Jeremy saying over and over and over again, if you have a dream that you're dying, it's a dream about rebirth. And that a part of me, if I'm dreaming that I'm dying, a part of me is dying. And the part of me, it will be reborn. I'm going toward something else. That he did not ever, that I remember, say, if you dream you're dying, you're going to die soon. No, I don't remember him saying that. And I took a lot of comfort in that. So one of the things would be, if that were my dream, I would be thinking, okay, what part of me is getting shot down? What part of me might be being reborn or come out of that as another Eric Smith? Yeah, maybe.
Hi, my name is Lori Spear. So I'm one of those people that dreams, and I'll wake up in the night and I'll go, oh, I have to write this down. It's a fascinating dream. And I write it down. And then the next day I get up and I go, I have no idea what I found. I need long enough to really document what that dream is. Maybe I'll wake up and go, oh, I had a dream and it's about this. And then it just goes away, like immediately. So I thought, yeah, And I'm sure there's a message in that as well. But I wonder how many people dream and they really don't know what their dreams are about.
Okay, so raise of hands. Yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, one of the things that I'm grateful to Anne saying is if I can just think of a title and just try to remember that title, and then if I start writing about that, sometimes that brings some things back. I got a CPAP. Anybody else here wear a CPAP? I don't dream as much with the CPAPs.
I'm never dreaming now.
Okay.
I never dream now.
Yeah.
Don't think I'm ever dreaming.
Well, I think that's probably it for me, that I think I'm not dreaming. Maybe I am. But I did have one dream. And it was just when you spoke about a sensation, this one was a couple of weeks ago, was an image. And all there was this image, and it was a white quilt that had been quilted on with squares all about the church. And it showed me that the church was going to be fine. In the dream.
I don't remember having dreams for a long time. My smartwatch says that I don't have much deep sleep. At the most, maybe a half hour. I don't know how to remedy that. But what I do have is, on occasions, as I reflect, the first thought of the morning before I really am aware of the day. And the best one was a morning in October 5, 1986, 85. And before I was even consciously awake, and I said to the kids, 3 of them, I was a single parent, I'm not going shopping this day. It was a Saturday. I'm not going shopping. I'm not going to clean house. It's just too nice a day to not take advantage of getting to the beach. Late October. I take them to the beach. I pick up one of their little friends along the way. We're the only ones there. Until a man walks over the dunes. In all my years living along the coast, no one has ever said what he did. Can I join you? Sure. There was the whole beach there. And we talked, and we talked, and we talked. Kids were getting sunburned. I didn't tell him my phone number. In fact, he asked what my husband did for a living, and I told him. I didn't tell him he was my ex-husband. But he did know where I worked. So later that week at work, I'm working, I opened up a newspaper, and there is an introduction of this man who had just moved in from Ohio to work at the local university, and tells all about his history. And my thought was, he's no phony. A few days later, we had a switchboard operator outside my office. And she said, Carol, there's a Carol on, somebody asking for a Carol on the phone, but I don't recognize the last name. Maybe you know who this is. I said, well, put the call through. So it was the man from the beach. He had surmised that my name was Carol, and the last name on the float was my last name, but that was my son's buddy that we had picked up. So anyway, he was calling just to see if we were going to, if he knew of a local high school football game that was going on in town that night. So later that night, I told him, I saw him down there on the football field. I said, I went to him and I said, I confess, I was the phony. I was not married to the person that I said I was. We married and we were happy together for 37 years.
Oh, wow.
I lived them.
There you go. I want to get
I have a high school.
Glenn here.
I
Yeah.
have a high school football story. It's not as happy as yours, but when I was high school football players, I just said, "Oh, I just want to be one of those guys." And I've never been much of an athlete, so I went out for the football team. The first day of high school, first day of practice, the coach said, "Welcome to football. This is the sport that separates the men from the boys. If you're a man, you're going to be here 3 years from now." High school is 3 years then. And I said, "I'll be here 3 years from now." I had a horrible experience. I never got to play in one game. I was a tackling dummy. I weighed 140 pounds. I was a skinny guy that got beat up on, but somehow I just couldn't quit. I was too stupid to quit. But I had a dream after high school where I go back to high school, a couple years later. I'm 50 pounds heavier. The coach sees me. The coach never even said my name. In my dream, he knows my name. He kind of did everything he did to get me to quit, but I wouldn't. It was a crazy thing. But in the dream, he says, "Oh, you're here. Suit up. They'll never know. We need you." I go and I do great things. I had this dream for 10 years. It's not a nightmare. It's just a depressing dream. Oh, God, the football dream again. When I was in my early 30s, I started writing it down. I said, I just got to figure this out. I just kind of went through it and figured out the lessons I can learn. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't question authority. Sometimes don't trust your elders just because they're elders. Set your own goals. And I started living my life that way. I'm more of an artist than an athlete. I was a good lawyer, but became a great art teacher. I went back to school, and I tell people, as a result of working that out, I was able to be twice as happy making half as much money. So that's my dream.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jane. A couple things. So I think telling someone your dream is important. I had my first dog. Her name was Winter. I picked out the name even before I found the dog because she was a rescue and she turned out to be white. But I was going to call the dog Winter no matter what. So I had her for, I think, almost 11 years, 12 years. And I had this dream. My mother just happened to call me. It was a business call. So, so she knew before I went to work, I got to get to Jane because this is important. So I had just woken up. She knew my schedule. I had just woken up and I told my mom I just had a dream. And in the dream, Winter and I are out in the woods walking, which we did every morning. And Winter starts talking to me. And Winter is telling me that I need to start getting prepared for Winter's death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very nonchalant. And Mom, the dog's calling me Mom. Hey, it's time for you to start thinking about what to do when I'm gone. I'm like, oh, Winter. I'm like dismissing the dog. And the dog is talking to me and I'm in denial. Mom, it's coming up. You need to face this. So I'm telling my mother this dream. And so so Winter got a very mild hound dog, but Winter was very assertive in my dream and said, Mom, stop, look at me. This is going to happen soon. Ooh. And I said, okay, I gotcha. Okay. And then I said, and then Winter says, I want you to get another dog. And of course I'm like, you're my friend. I'm not going to get another dog. And so Winter's like, yes, I want you to get another dog. And I held space for Winter and she's telling me about, you're going to find another dog. And then I said, finally, and I suppose you know what I'm supposed to name this dog. And she goes, of course, name her Ruby. So I tell my mom this story. Winter dies, probably, I didn't write it down. I just get ready for work, and 3 or 4 months later, Winter dies. And I was telling Mom, my mother, and she says, so when are you going to get Ruby? And I said, what are you talking about, Mom? Who's Ruby? And she goes, my mom retold me the dream. And then I remembered it. So, just telling someone, and I don't remember dreams very well. So it was just, just timing and just sharing that. And then my mother remembering it for me.
Wonderful.
It was very beautiful. So I guess that's what I just wanted to encourage people if you have the opportunity. At the time, I wasn't living with anyone, so I didn't have anyone to tell the dream. I don't know. I was thinking at one time, put a little transcription device and then talk
Yeah.
the dream, but I never was organized to make that happen. So that's my story.
I would add that there's a spiritual component of dreams I believe very deeply in, and that I can consider it this is my father part of me or something else, but sometimes I will feel that the dreams are messages from my parents or someone who's died. That's something I believe quite deeply in.
Yeah, my name is Vicky, and I used to lament the fact that I could never remember dreams, ever. And I was reading a book, I believe it was Robert Atkins' Vitanutrient Solution, and it said if you can't remember your dreams, you need B6.
Yeah.
You're low in B6.
B6.
Mhm.
And I went out, cheap as dirt, took it, and by God, it works. So if any of you out there,
Jeremy Taylor says that
it
too.
worked for me.
Yeah, B complex is a good way to take some B. Also, he said that alcohol can have a negative effect. If you're drinking a lot in the evening, you probably won't have the same kind of good dreams. Anything else with that?
Claudia's got it.
I'm Claudia Conley, and I had a repetitive dream 3 times that I'll never forget. And that the first time I had it, I kept dreaming that my, number of nights in a row, my mom was coming to visit. And, I was saying to Jeff, I keep having this dream that mom's coming to visit. And then I realized later that I was pregnant. So I was in a dream before I even was supposed to have my period. And we both studied dreams, so it was kind of interesting that I never caught on to that. But we weren't trying, so it just was out of the blue. We were in college, and then the next time I got pregnant, before I knew I was pregnant, I had one dream that mom was coming to visit, and I go to Jeff. So those are anyway. I guess premonition, maybe. I don't know what it was, but I love those dreams.
Yeah.
I just have a suggestion if you want to have dreams to have chocolate, because I notice a big correlation. I don't have chocolate all that often, but when I do, I have really, really vivid dreams.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, I just have 2 little comments.
Mhm. Suzanne.
One is that to help encourage dreams also, I will do little pictures in my journal before I go to sleep. They are like symbols, and it's sort of like putting it. It's like asking for a dream. And the other one, when you said about having CPAP and you don't dream now that you have CPAP. I'm wondering if dreams do happen on a level where you're not really in deep sleep, but where you on a more there's an alertness there, and being partially your sleep being partially disturbed may help to encourage dreams.
Yeah. I think that's possible. Yeah, but some of the dreams I remember best are the ones that I sort of half wake up and then go back to sleep. And often that's when I would have a lot of really, good dreams. But it would suggest that the deep sleep is not as conducive. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, Bill, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't remember dreams very well, but often I will wake up with information or analysis of data that I have in a project that I'm doing that I didn't realize there was something there that I wake up with this. So I've taken to writing my reports and then going the next day, wait till the next day to distribute them.
I want to say that our Myers-Briggs personality types affect our dreaming. And as an extrovert, my dreams make other people tired. And I would say, if I were a scientist, to have a report as part of my dream rather than as a minister where mine, go that way, is that makes a lot of sense. And that what my personality type is, a thinker or a feeler, an extrovert or an introvert, or those things become part of my dream world. And then sometimes my dreams are like mirror the opposite side of my personality, but it is very interesting to think of how, I'm a Bill Zagel and I have my reports come back to me the next day, and Larry Reimer's thinking of images for sermons. So that's, go.
Yes, this relates back to the comment about stages in the sleep cycle and which cycle and whatever you're more likely to dream. And my understanding is that there is a stage called the REM stage of sleep, in which you are kind of almost semi-conscious. And in studies, I think they have measured brain activity being much more active during that REM cycle than during the delta sleep or the deep sleep and whatever as well.
So I'm going to, people go, okay, go ahead. Barbara. Yeah.
Two quick comments. One is we all have a recorder. And sometimes you can just say something into your phone that will trigger your memory for a dream. Just, I don't do that myself, but Charlie does it sometimes. The other thing, I was thinking about Jeremy, and one level of discussing dreams that has become, I think, more significant for me lately is either the political or the societal level that all dreams have. Yeah, if you care to go there. And it's a way of having a different perspective of looking at a world view of things. And I used to love it when Jeremy would talk about that. I have some funny stories about it. I won't go into that here, but that's helpful in groups as a different way of sharing about just what's going on in our world now or over the last years. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been in a dream group for about 20 years. And this week, when we had one, this is about wordplay in a dream. So the person telling the dream had a child walking with her, and she said it was non-binary. And so in talking about it, we all talked about what that would mean to us. And at the very end, when she was invited back in, she said the idea, as she listened to us, the idea came to her. And we all went with sort of a normal way of looking at that, part female, part male. And she said, as she listened, what came to her was that the sort of like the decision or the thing she was really struggling with is it's non-binary. It doesn't just have an either or answer, that there's more to look at it than just from one point of view or another. And that was interesting to me about the wordplay.
Yeah.
I think we're about out of time. That clock isn't right. And so, Sandy, do you want to
Well,
close?
just any last
thing
that hasn't been said that you've been wishing someone said? Good.
Do you want to say something, close up?
You can.
Two things. One is we have some copies of Jeremy Taylor's 10, sort of the summary, the basic things we just said here. You can pick up. If you don't get one, let me know. I'll get you another. The other is that when we do dreams, the last word is always that of the dreamer. That after everybody has all these ideas, we go say the final word, nobody can come back and say, no, I still think that, is that what's the final word of the dreamer? What does it mean to me or you as the dreamer? And that's the real power. That's the truth. That the truth is within each of us, as to what that dream means, not what someone else can tell us. I believe that there may be a copy of Jeremy's book where water runs uphill and people fly?
Yeah.
Something like.
Or people fly and
Something
water runs uphill.
flies, but maybe in the church
I think it's in the church library.
or if not, you can always get a copy because it's a great book.
Yeah.
He died a few years ago, or we'd be having him back for more seminars here. But thank you all for being here.
And happy dreams.
Yes.
Good dreams.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Sorry. Good work. Ringo, take this back. Let me take your.
You may.
Grab it. Oh.